Thanks very much. Appreciate it. First off, I want to start by saying that when Pete Silverman asked me to do this, to host this event, I said to him, or I felt like saying to him, don't you think you should have somebody here who could break 150 at Bethpage to host an event like this? But I'm happy to be here. I first want to thank the people at Brooklyn Brewery for making this event possible. Also, Visa Signature. Visa Signature, and of course the great people at the Oak Room, which is a wonderful address, New York address for a wonderful New York event. Now, we all know that, actually, before we start, I wanted to also give a little bit of a shout out to two guys who are much better at this radio thing than I am. Let's start with Brandon Tierney of 1050 ESPN, over here on my left. And of course, from the Michael Kay Show, Don LaGreca, 1050 ESPN. We all know, obviously with the Open coming up next week at Bethpage, that the hardest major to win, I think by far, in terms of mental toughness, is the U.S. Open. And our special guest today did not win that event once, he won it twice. So imagine how much mental toughness you need to have to pull that off. That's a great daily double. He's also a wonderful analyst for ESPN. He'll be calling the action next week at Bethpage for ESPN. Please give a warm greeting to Andy North.
Thank you, Ian. Appreciate it.
How you feeling, Andy?
This is cool. This is it's nice to be able to say I took my wife to the Oak Room. I get some props for that. Thank you.
Actually, you look fit enough to shoot 65 at Bethpage next week.
Well, I could get 65. I may not be near the end when I get there, but it's going to be a fantastic championship. I think Bethpage is probably one of the more difficult Open venues that we've had. It's very, very fair, and it's just right there in front of you. There's not a lot of tricky stuff, and it's, are you man enough to figure out how to play it? I think that's what players really appreciate that.
Well, we'll get to Bethpage quite a bit, but first I wanted to talk a little bit about your career as a golfer and then as a broadcaster. And you're a Wisconsin guy, right?
Yeah, Madison, Wisconsin.
Thank
you, Badgers.
But I got to think you're very comfortable in the New York area because your first victory on the PGA Tour as a 27-year-old in 1977 was at Westchester.
He was.
Why don't you take us through that and what that experience was like?
Well, if you indulge me a little story before that. When we first started on tour, we couldn't afford calling friends, and we didn't have cell phones, and you couldn't email people. My wife, Susan, would, at the end of every week, usually on Monday, would write a letter, copy it, and send it out to 25 or 30 people. And my rookie year, I missed qualifying at Westchester, and basically in this letter she wrote, he can't stand the Northeast, he's never coming back, and this is terrible, the whole thing. Well, I ended up winning 4 years later, and her dad had kept that letter, and I got it back with like red magic marker around it. Yeah, how did it work out for you? But Westchester was one of my favorite golf courses of all time. If you look at the players who have won there, the list is very much like the people who win major championships.
Arnie, right?
Well, I mean, you name it, Jack, Arnold, right down the list. All the great players have won there. And it's a golf course that you really have to hit the ball well on. And particularly when they went to early in the year, when they were able to get the rough really thick. They played in August for a few years, and it'd get so hot and dry, the rough would dry out a little bit. But in June, when it was always the week or so before the Open, to me it was the perfect way to get ready for the Open. You'd play the same type of golf course, little teeny greens, firm, fast, a lot of rough. It was a great venue, and to win there, I'd played reasonably well. Every year I felt like I was getting a little bit better, and got there and had played in an outing Monday and Tuesday on the West Coast. My back was hurt. I was struggling. I'd missed 2 or 3 cuts in a row. I was a mess. And I called my wife and I said, I think I'm going to bag Westchester and go home. She said, no, you're not. We are already there. I've got theater plans all week long.
What play was that? Do you remember the play?
Do you remember what plays? I mean, there were like 4 or 5.
Oh, okay.
She'd just leave. I'd go to the golf course when we'd come to Westchester, and she'd get on the train, and I wouldn't see her until 10 o'clock that night. So she says, I don't think that's going to happen, because if you go home, fine. I'm still staying here, and we're going to plays and doing all this stuff. So literally stumbled in there. I took red eye, got into Westchester Wednesday morning. Wednesday in the Pro-Am, I played a Tip O'Neill, Danny Rostenkowski, Jamie Whitten, and a guy who was CEO of the Penny Company at the time. We got rained out after about 6 or 7 holes, sat around in literally some corner of the locker room and talked for like 3 or 4 hours. Had a great, one of those great days where you just have a ball. I was playing terrible. And went out Thursday morning, about the second hole, made a swing that all of a sudden it felt sort of how it's supposed to feel, and had a great week. So you never know what's going to happen. It's crazy.
I wanted to ask you about Sunday morning. I think those of us who are recreational golfers always wonder what that moment is like when you haven't won yet. You wake up on Sunday and you have a chance to win on the PGA Tour. What was that experience like?
Well, generally you don't wake up because you've been up all night long.
Right.
I mean, that's the first case. You're just trying to figure out, how do I have enough energy to get through the rest of this day? And to win the first time, it's difficult because, one, you haven't been there. You haven't been there enough. You don't understand sometimes what it takes to win. If you can go out there and just go play the way you've been playing, you approach every hole the same. You approach each shot. It's pretty simple to talk about playing one shot at a time, but that's really what it's all about. If you can stay focused for that one shot and then just go ahead and play from there, you'll be fine. But if you get on the 4th hole and start thinking, gee, I got a 3-shot lead, I'm going to win my first tournament, trust me, you aren't going to win.
Well, take us to the 72nd hole of that tournament. Who are you playing with? What's your lead at that point? And what's going through your mind as you're walking down the fairway, realizing you have a chance here to be a tour winner?
Well, I had the lead, and I got up that Sunday morning, the wind was blowing. It was blowing probably 15, 18 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, which immediately I like that. Now you're in a situation that there's probably not a score out there of 64 or 65 for somebody to come from way behind. So I like that. So that eliminated a lot of players. I was playing with George Archer, and I really was pretty much ahead the whole day. I made some birdies early on, made a couple of pars here and there, and all of a sudden you've got a 2 or 3 shot lead with a bunch of holes to play. And the 17th hole, I think I had a 3-shot lead playing 17. 17 is a little short par 4, pins way back over this bunker, and I'm trying to hit it the middle of the green. I pull this thing perfect. I mean, like about 8 feet behind the hole. I'm thinking, this is over. It's a real quick putt. Before I know it, I putted about 4 feet by and then missed that one. All of a sudden now you're 2 shots to playing the last hole. It was nice it's a par 5 that I could, get there in 3 and make a 5 and end up winning. But it was a great relief, and it's nice to get that first win. And one special moment, I'm getting ready for the trophy presentation, and at that time our oldest daughter was 2 years old maybe, and it's one of those deals that all of a sudden, she wants to go see her dad.
Right.
Doesn't understand what's going on, couldn't care what's going on. Well, next thing you know, here comes this little kid running across the green with the doll under her arm, running for her father, which was pretty cool. And Frank Shirkinian, who produced CBS Golf back then, the word in the truck as he's screaming and hollering at everybody, forget the trophy presentation, get the kid, get the kid. So it was not planned, but it turned out really neat, and that's a great memory to have on tape.
Let's go to the following year, 1978. You're 28 years old, the U.S. Open at Cherry Hills, and golf fans remember that Arnold Palmer had his great U.S. Open victory, probably his greatest victory ever at Cherry Hills in 1960, down 7 shots on the last day and comes back to win. You had a lead on Sunday morning, if I remember correctly, and you ended up winning by a shot over Snead, J.C. Snead, and Dave Stockton.
Well, the proudest part of that week is that it was a great week. Susan was pregnant with our second daughter, so she couldn't travel. Very pregnant with the second daughter at that time, and I had a good friend who was a pro in Denver, so I stayed with him during the week. So it was a nice, relaxing place to play. I played exceptionally well from the win at Westchester the fall before, and that week I'd had 4 seconds. Had finished second the last start before the Open, so I went in there really thinking that, I'm supposed to win these things. You wonder sometimes if you actually have a clue what's going on around you, but I really felt like, the next step was to win major championships, and I liked Cherry Hills. I didn't practice very well that week, and again, second shot on the very first hole of the tournament, made a swing with a wedge that felt pretty decent, and all of a sudden he got a little bit of rhythm going, and I played real well all week long.
Now, you've said that twice. Is that all it takes, is one swing sometimes to just lock in?
Sometimes. I mean, it's not any different than when you guys are playing and you hit that one shot, they think, geez, you know.
Oh, it's different.
I got it now.
Trust me. Yeah, it's different.
Well, usually we can, once you get that feeling, you can make it happen for a while. Most guys, oops, there it went. I felt it. It was great. It was a nice shot, but maybe I won't see that again for a while. But the proudest, I had the lead. I was at the lead the whole week there. I was a shot back after the first round. I had the lead after the second round. Saturday played with Nicklaus, which was a great thrill, and had the lead that night, and then played with Gary Player.
Let me stop you there with Nicklaus, because I think maybe young golf fans don't realize that he probably was just as intimidating to play with as Tiger. Was that your experience with him?
He might have been more so in a lot of ways. He dominated the game very much like Tiger. People, unless you're at least my age, you really never got to see Jack play at his best. You know, he won the Masters in '86. That's kind of the last recollection most fans have of Jack Nicklaus. When Jack won the Masters in '86, he was probably 10 years past his prime,
right,
and still won a major championship. Jack was a very easy player to play with, a great gentleman. I was lucky enough to play a lot of golf with him.
So he made you feel comfortable that day, even though it's the U.S. Open? And
I think I'd played with him enough up to that point in time that I was comfortable. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's funny. Jack and I probably, if we played 18 rounds of competitive golf together, or 20 or 15, we played about that many, I would suspect that we were about even as who shot the best scores in those days.
Is that right?
Not necessarily because I played well. Mm-hmm. It's because I had something. He never played great with me, and I don't know if he'd look at me and say, "How can this duck be beating me?" Or he just, who knows how it happens. But we've become great friends, and to be able to play with Jack Nicklaus the Saturday of a major championship, then play with Gary Player on Sunday of a major championship, and then win that championship, that meant an awful lot.
I think on the 72nd hole, you needed a 5 to win. And I think you ended up in a bunker, if I'm not mistaken.
I chopped it around a little bit, playing up the hole, and put it in a front side bunker, and hit a really good bunker shot and got it and made the putt to win, making 5 in the last hole. So sometimes it's not artistic; it just needs to get done, and it's fortunate it got done.
Well, tell us what it's like when that final putt drops and you're the U.S. Open champion. What does that feel?
Well, I've got again, it's a cute little story. Bob Rosberg, who did golf for ABC for 30 years, we lost him about a month or so ago. Great guy, really a character, wonderful player, won the PGA, really a good broadcaster. He comes first guy. He's the first one out on the green to congratulate me, and he looks at me and says, "God, am I glad you made that putt." And I said, "Well, thanks, Rossi." He says, no, not for what you're thinking about. He said, "I got an outing tomorrow. They're paying me $10,000, and my wife Eleanor had you in the pool that was worth about $5,000. So this is a good day for us."
$15,000, not bad.
Yeah, it was a good day for the Rosbergs.
Right. But when you have that feeling, did you know inside that you were capable of winning a major, or do you not know that until it happens?
I think so. I really felt like, from a mental standpoint, the major championships were the events I would play well in. I wasn't a big 30 under par. I loved playing events where par was a good score, and obviously the Open is that kind of event. From the time I was 13, 14, 15 years old, putting on a green late at night, this putt was to beat Nicklaus to win the U.S. Open. I mean, that 5-footer you kept practicing, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room have done the same thing. But to get yourself in that position, have something good happen, you don't know how you're going to handle it, and just fortunate to handle it okay.
Before we fast forward to '85 and your second Open championship, let's talk. You mentioned playing with Nicklaus. What about playing with Arnold Palmer? What was that experience like?
Well, Arnold was the first time I played with Arnold was my first tournament, L.A. Open, 1973. I'd somehow made the cut and got paired with Arnold, and you'd hit it 4 feet from the hole with a 4-iron in some hole. Arnold would hit it 70 feet on the green, and he'd get the standing ovation. They wouldn't even clap for your shot. Arnold was always a wonderful guy to play with. It's hard to believe he's got his 80th birthday coming up in September. I mean, you just can't believe he's 80 years old.
Right.
But one of my favorite Arnold stories, it must have been 79, 80, somewhere in there, after I'd won my first Open. I got paired with Jack and Arnold at the TPC. And there's some tournaments they just announce you. There's other tournaments where they actually Jack Nicklaus, winner of the Masters, winner of 5 of these, winner of 6 of those, winner of, da 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 da, on and on and on, won 95 tournaments and, all this stuff. Well, the TPC is one of those events, they announce you that way. So Arnold's hits first, and it takes him 15 minutes to announce Arnold. Then Jack hits second, and it takes him 18 minutes to announce Jack. And then I'm the last guy to play, and it's like, and playing with him some duck that just showed up this week that, come play. I mean, that's kind of the feeling you had. But it was, the neatest thing about playing with those guys is that, they were both my heroes as a kid. Mm-hmm. And to get to the point where you're now one of their peers and being in a situation to where, you go and play with the guys that you never dreamed you'd have a chance to play with. It was pretty special, and they were both very, very kind to the younger players. They were very easy to play with. Typically, if they'd putt up 2 feet from the hole, they'd always mark it, so they'd make sure that you weren't putting a 6-footer with all the people running off. So they were very considerate, and it's neat to be able to call them friends now, 25, 30 years later.
Now, I'm wondering, after you win the U.S. Open, do you sense that Jack and Arnie and the rest of the players really look at you in a different way? You're a major champion now. You're one of them.
Well, one of the neatest things about winning in '78, I'd committed to play a Pro-Am on Monday in Montreal. It was the sponsor of the Canadian Open, Imperial Tobacco, I think is who it was. And they'd put together a group of incredible players, Nicholas, Watson, Trevino, Palmer, the who's who in golf. And then they had a couple of younger guys that, just field fillers, basically. The chairman's budget got busted, and he had to get a couple of cheap guys at the end. Well, after we won, I got on an airplane about 9 o'clock that night, flew to Montreal all by myself. And we played this event the next day, and then that night at dinner, it was basically a dinner for just the chairman and the 8 or 9 or 10 of us that had played that day. And during the course of that night, Arnold got up and toasted the new U.S. Open champion, which, oh, geez, that was like unbelievable feeling that now you're a member of that club. It was pretty cool.
That's the great thing about golf. You can play and compete against your heroes. We still see occasionally Tiger out there with Jack.
Sure.
Does that separate golf from maybe the other sports? You don't see Kobe Bryant out there with Elgin Baylor.
Yeah, that's true. It's we're very fortunate that way, and also fortunate that our game is built so well for business that you can go out and play with 3 CEOs or 3 people that want to pay to play in a Pro-Am. That's been very important for our business, and it's what's really kept us going through hard times.
All right, let's go to Oakland Hills in 1985, the U.S. Open again. And actually, this time you don't have the lead. You're trailing T.C. Chen of Taiwan. And those of us old enough to remember the famous double hit by Chen where he scores a quadruple bogey 8, I believe.
One of my favorite shots ever hit.
I actually did perform the triple hit one time in the rough, but you actually said you did that once yourself, the double hit.
We've all done that. It's anytime you're in some deep grass, you're trying to take a long, soft swing to hit an easy shot out of deep grass, there's a really good chance you can hit it multiple times. If you slow the tape down on TC, he may have hit it 3 or 4 times. It stayed on the club a long time, but
well,
it was a...
Where were you standing when he did that? You're back, what, 3, 4 shots?
I started the day 2 behind, playing in the last group with him, and I struggled a couple of bogeys early on. He'd gotten off to a good start, so he had a 4-shot lead on a couple of us. So walking off that green, all of a sudden we're tied, so the game, he really had the U.S. Open in his grasp. He tried to play a very aggressive little pitch shot around the green on the 3rd shot that got him in trouble for the 4th. He'd played that same shot 2 or 3 times during the week and pulled it off. So it was just a matter of time. You can't go to the well on impossible shots very often, and it finally caught up with him. And then after that, there were 5 or 6 of us that had a good chance to win.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you're a 2-time U.S. Open champion, I asked you before if players sort of looked at you differently when you've won it once. Now that you're a double major winner, how do you think you were perceived by the rest of the guys in the clubhouse?
Well, I think players really respect players that have done something, that have a respect for the game, that have worked hard to get there. I think that's always the guys inside usually respect the guys probably a lot more than the guys outside because they know what people have gone through. They know how hard they've had to work. They know which guys are really talented and which guys aren't as talented that had to work a little bit harder to get there. So I don't think there's ever been an issue of respect once you walk inside the locker room.
Mm-hmm. Now, the question I get most often after doing the Arnie and Jack book, particularly, is from golf fans want to know straight up head-to-head Tiger or Jack. Now, you played through probably the second half of Jack's prime. You didn't play, obviously, in Tiger's prime. But same balls, same clubs, same golf course. Who wins that?
I don't really know, but it's one of the few golf events I'd pay money to go watch. They're so similar in how they approach the game. Both very, very bright players on the golf course. When Tiger came on, everybody talked about, here's a guy that's overpowering the golf course. Well, Jack did the same thing. If you look at their skills, Jack was able to put the ball in the fairway when he needed to. He wasn't a great driver of the golf ball, but when he needed to put it in the fairway, he did that. Tiger's still learning how to do that, and the more he hits his 3-wood, the more he hits irons off the tee, the better he's going to be. They both great long iron players. Jack, maybe the best long iron player ever. Tiger, very close. Both very similar middle iron players. The one place that Tiger probably is better than Jack is pitching, chipping, creative stuff around the greens. Both unbelievable putters. I mean, I can't imagine if someone had a gun to your head and you could pick a guy to hit a putt from 4 or 5 feet. I never saw Jack miss one that he needed to make, and you pretty much haven't seen Tiger miss one that he's needed to make.
Isn't Tiger a little better at that 12 to 15 foot putt that you have to make to win?
You know, Tiger's made a bunch of them, but you go back and look at tape, Jack made every single putt he ever needed to make. I mean, they're so similar. Jack's short game probably not quite as good as Tiger's, but they both dominated the game. They both really were overpowered the golf courses. So it's seeing a second coming of Jack.
You know, the one thing I think people are looking for is a defining rival for Tiger. And you look in Jack's day, the 4 major competitors that he dealt with, starting with Palmer and Player, then going to Trevino and Watson, they combined to win 30 majors. The top 4 guys in the Tiger era, if you want to say Els, Mickelson, Singh, and Goosen, have combined, I believe, to win 11. That's a big difference, isn't it, as far as the top guys that they had to play against?
I really do. The discussion comes up all the time. Are these guys not winning majors because Tiger's there, or aren't they as good, or whatever? I think that the quality of the depths of the fields today are so much deeper. But I think 25 years ago, the top players found a way to really make themselves better. The current player with the most major championship wins, Ernie has 3, Phil has 3, VJ has 3. I mean, you go back to the guys that played against Jack. You know, Arnold had 7, Player had 9, Watson had 8, and then there's a whole lot of guys.
Trevino
like
had 6, I believe. Yep.
Trevino. Then you look at a whole lot of guys like the Raymond Floyds and the, great players that won 2 or 3 or 4 major championships. It's hard to argue that what Jack accomplished isn't pretty special. Tiger's going to break that record. The thing that I think is so amazing about Jack, not only did he win his 18 majors, he had 19 seconds and 18 thirds in major championships. That's 55 first, seconds, or thirds in major championships. There's a lot of really, really good, high-quality players that have never played in 55 majors. I mean, I go back over my record. I probably played in 65 majors in my career, and the guys finished first, second, and third in 55. That's ridiculous.
You still haven't answered my question, Tiger or Jack?
I may not. I think you're going to have trouble coming up with an answer.
I'll say Tiger with a birdie putt on 18.
Well, but Jack might have had a big enough lead. He didn't have to make that.
Speaking of Tiger, obviously, we just saw Federer in tennis tie Pete Sampras's record at 14. Jack at 18, Tiger now at 14. Do you fully expect he'll get to 15 next week?
I really do. I think there's a good chance Tiger will win 25 majors before he's done. It might happen in the next 4 or 5 years. If Tiger's playing well and he stays reasonably healthy, I just don't see that these guys are good enough to beat him. And he so focuses on the major championships. That's all that he cares about. And I think that's important. I mean, he obviously every time he plays, he wants to win, but he's at a whole nother level when you get to a major, just like Jack was.
Now, I think golf fans, again, are sort of waiting to see these young guns, if one of them is going to emerge as a Trevino or as a Watson. You look at Anthony Kim, Ishikawa from Japan, Rory McIlroy from Ireland, and Danny Lee. Do you see a guy from that group, I think maybe it's Anthony Kim, who's going to rise up and maybe win a few majors in Tiger's prime?
I hope so. Anthony Kim is an incredible talent, beautiful golf swing. We saw him really explode on the scene last year, winning a couple events, and then had a really good Ryder Cup, which I think was really good for him. But I think it's a situation of how hungry are these players? There's an opportunity to make an awful lot of money right now, and if you're 25 or 6 or 7 years old and you've got 30 or 40 million dollars in the bank, it takes a real special person to keep pushing themselves to become the best. That's something that was drilled into Tiger from the time he was 4 or 5 years old, trying to beat Jack. I mean, he's been trying to beat Jack forever. Once Jack got his major total, if there'd have been somebody that would have been inspiring him to win 25, he might have won 25.
He actually told me that when I was doing the book. He said if Jones's number was higher, I might have won 21, 22, 23. Or if Tiger was before me, I might have tried to match his number.
Where Tiger, I mean, the one thing that's so neat about Tiger is that he has this passion to be the best that's ever been. I mean, hands down, he wants to be the best player that's ever been. He's completely been told since the time he was a little kid that you've been put on this earth to be the best player that's ever been. And I think that's a huge part of where he's going.
Let's talk about a guy who's not a young gun, Phil Mickelson, obviously going through a health crisis in his family with his wife and the unfortunate diagnosis that she has breast cancer. How do you think the emotions of going through that is going to affect him next week at Bethpage?
Well, I think usually, first of all, everybody handles that sort of stuff so differently. I think that it'll be positive or negative, and there won't be much in between. Phil mentioned in his press conference the other day that, you know, when he gets on the golf course, that's really the only 4 or 5 hours of the day that he's not having a chance, that he can kind of sort of forget about it and go in and concentrate on what he's doing. The people next week are going to be so in Phil's camp, it's going to be unbelievable. Sometimes that's really good. You know, it can really carry a player through periods where he's not playing very well. But at the same time, if Phil gets emotional and these people are really, you know, pulling him along, and he gets a little bit emotional and loses his concentration, it obviously can be really tough for him to focus on what he's going to do. But it's a golf course he likes. He played exceptionally well there. Tiger beat him by 3 shots the last time. And really, he's the one guy that you think can beat Tiger. He's the one player that probably has the physical talents equal to Tiger, and not many other guys do.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you see a scenario where Tiger does not win, and I think everybody in this room probably believes he will win, but if he doesn't, give me your pick and why.
Well, you gotta pick Tiger. If you're putting your real money on who's going to win, you have to take Tiger. And the reason I really like what I've seen over the course of this year, it looks like his knee's getting better. He's now able to hit some practice balls after he finishes rounds, so that's really important for the player to be able to go out and either fix what you're doing wrong or retool a little bit and refocus on what you're doing. And sometimes you need 15 or 20 balls just to kind of close out the day, and you feel good that, okay, I'm ready to go tomorrow. He drove the ball unbelievably well last week at Memorial. He went to a driver with a little bit more loft, and over the course of the 52 driving holes, I think, 54 driving holes, that he only missed 7 fairways. If you put Tiger Woods in the fairway, he's not going to make bogeys, and if Tiger doesn't make bogeys, he's going to kill you. So if he drives the ball anywhere near as he did last week, I don't see any reason he won't win. And if he drives as well as he did there and hits that many fairways, he might win by 10.
10, wow. Let's say he WDs with a sore knee. Who wins that tournament then?
Good luck on getting that to happen. After what he went through last year,
right.
I think you have to shoot him. There's Phil, I think, is going to have a tough time. Player I really do like is Jeff Ogilvy. He won it at Winged Foot. He's a terrific ball striker, and he's won a couple of times this year. He's the kind of player that, if you watch his demeanor on the golf course, he just sort of hits it and wanders off and hits it again and keeps wandering around and doesn't get too terribly excited about things, and he's a good putter. And if you can keep your patience and you're a good putter, you've got a chance to win the U.S. Open.
That's actually a great pick. He would be my non-Tiger pick as well, Jeff Ogilvy.
Last thing, Andy, on something.
Yeah, right. Last thing, the Bethpage obviously has now hosted 2 U.S. Opens in the last 7 years. Mm-hmm. What makes the USGA obviously loves it? What makes that ballpark special?
I think one of the things the USGA really likes is it's a public golf course. Last time, I was blown away by the reaction of the fans there. That if I got asked one time, I got asked 2,000 times during the course of the week of, what do you like? How do you like our course? Or what do you think of my course? Or our course this, our course that. So many people here have taken ownership of that. And I think that's what's really cool. And it's a hard course. It's very fair. I thought last year was set up, but last time it was set up just unbelievable with the different lengths of rough going all the way out to the fescues that were waist high. If you play well there, you can make some birdies, you can be rewarded. If you get it going sideways there, you just forget it and get out of town Friday night and worry about the next week.
Well, great stuff, Andy, and thanks so much, everyone. Andy North.
Appreciate it for coming out. Thank you.